Good morning, Recording Secretary Burr. Are we ready to go?
Yes, we are. Zoning Administrator Mead.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Well, good morning. I am Zoning Administrator for the City of Santa Rosa. My name is Sherry Meads, and I'd like to call to order the November 17th, 2022 Zoning Administrator meeting. Pursuant to Government Code Section 54953A and the recommendation of the Sonoma County Health Officer, the Zoning Administrator will be facilitating this meeting via Zoom webinar. Members of the public can participate virtually at www.zoom.us/join or by calling toll free 877-853-5257 and use meeting ID number 819-841-1021. Members of the public who are accessing the meeting through Zoom can provide comments during the public comment periods. Additional information related to meeting participation is available at www.srcity.org/zoning admin. The meeting is also being live streamed at www.youtube.com/City of Santa Rosa. That's all a mouthful. So right now we're going to go ahead and open a public comment period. This is a period of time for non-agenda items. It's an opportunity for the public to address any matters within the purview of the zoning administrator that are not on today's agenda. A public comment period after each item will also be provided. Recording Secretary Burr will provide instructions on how to make a comment.
If you'd like to make a public comment, you can do so by selecting the raised hand icon at the bottom of your Zoom screen. If you're calling in, please press *9 and that'll enable the raise your hand feature. Zoning Administrator Meads, it looks like we do have a hand raised.
Okay.
Tamara Park, I'm going to give you permissions to speak. Could you please state your name for the record?
Hello, my name is Tamara Park. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. Are you able to see me too or just hear me?
We just hear you.
Oh, okay. Thank you. My name is Tamara Park and my family lives on Marsh Hawk here in the Skyhawk community. And I wanted to say that I'm very upset and concerned that our community was not involved or included in this process. I do believe that this detox and rehab facility will have a negative impact on the safety of our community and neighborhood, especially the children with Austin Creek Elementary School close by. I'm also very concerned about other impacts, such as hazardous medical waste and increased police and medical emergency activities. I just wanted to make my voice heard that my family does not want to have this detox and rehab here in our neighborhood and community. Thank you.
Hi, Ms. Park. I didn't want to interrupt you while you were in the middle of your comment, but just so you know, that is not an item on today's zoning administrator agenda. I believe it will be heard by the Planning Commission tonight. So the proposed Pura Vida project is not being heard at the zoning administrator meeting. It will be heard tonight. Wait, hold on. Let me double check. It is going to be heard December 8th at the Planning Commission, and that will be noticed and notified to all neighbors within 600 feet of the project. So I thank you for your comment, but please do know that this meeting will not involve discussion of that particular item.
Oh, I'm sorry about that.
That's okay. That's very okay. I'm happy you're engaged, and you will hear more about it as being a Planning Commission item.
Okay, thank you. And will that also be a Zoom meeting as well?
Yes, yes,
okay.
It will be. And the project planner is on the call right now. If maybe she wants to jump in real quick and give her contact information.
Hi, yes, my name is Noor Bisla. My My email is sbisla@srcity.org. And my phone number is 707-543-3223. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. So that is who will be taking the project that you discussed to the Planning Commission. Anybody that's here for that item, it will not be heard at all. You're welcome to stick around for the exciting ones we do have, but the Pura Vida item is not on today's agenda.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome.
Zoning Administrator Meads, we did have a hand raised.
Okay.
Kathy, if you still wish to speak, please select the raise your hand icon at the bottom of your Zoom screen. If you're calling in, please press *9. All right, she is choosing not to raise her hand, so I don't see any other hands raised.
Excellent. Okay, so I am just going to make one more announcement that the Pura Vida item is tentatively scheduled for the Planning Commission on December 8th. Whenever this item is going to be heard, there will be public notice provided pursuant to city standards and regulations. But that Pura Vida item is not on today's zoning administrator agenda, just for clarity. Okay, no other public comments then, Ms. Burr?
There are not.
Okay, excellent. Then let's move on to item number 3 on the agenda, which is zoning administrator business. This includes the zoning administrator statement of purpose, which I will read now. The zoning administrator is appointed by the Planning and Economic Development Director and has the authority to conduct public hearings and to take action on applications for minor discretionary projects. A determination or decision by the zoning administrator can be appealed to the Design Review Board, Cultural Heritage Board, Planning Commission, or City Council as applicable to the decision. There are no zoning administrator reports or consent items today, so I'm going to go ahead and jump to item number 5 on the agenda, which is our regularly scheduled items. Our first item is a public hearing item. The application is for minor design review of an AT&T telecommunications facility modification at 750 Doyle Park Drive. City file number is DR 22-040, and the presenting planner is Suzanne Hartman.
Good morning, Zoning Administrator Meads. How are you?
Good morning. Happy to see you.
All right, let me go ahead and share my screen. All right, can you see my screen?
We can.
Perfect. Okay. All right, so I'm presenting the minor design review permit application for a telecommunications facility modification located at 750 Doyle Park Drive, which was formerly noted as 1700 Hohen Avenue. So the project application, sorry for the typo there, it should just be singular application, not with an S there. It includes a minor design review permit to allow various modifications at an existing facility, which includes wireless antenna replacements, some new wireless antennas, and as well as new equipment modifications, I should say, at the ground level that's located at Doyle Community Park. Mm-hmm. And I should also note that this project is consistent with Zoning Code Section 20-44.060, Section D for co-location, which is only subject to minor design review because the proposed modifications are consistent with the requirements of Section 6409A of the Middle Class Tax Relief and Job Creation Act of 2012, or as otherwise required by federal law, and shall comply with the applicable provisions of this chapter. And this section also applies to facilities that were legal when they were originally constructed, but according to changes to zoning code or any other applicable zoning district development standards caused or may have caused structure to become legal nonconforming. So this is the location of the telecommunications facility, and here's a better, more crisp image for you. As you can see, it is located directly adjacent to the baseball diamond field and parking lot that's off of Hohen Avenue. The general zoning designation is single family residential, which is R16, and the general plan zoning designation is parks and recreation. This is the applicant's site plan, and I will give you a more zoomed in version of that as well. So you can see the existing tower location, and adjacent to it is the ground level facilities. Here are the existing and proposed northwest elevations, which, as you can see here, there are some changes to the existing antennas, and then also addition of some antennas at the bottom of the monopole there. And this is the existing and proposed southwest elevation. And here is a view of the modifications that are happening at ground level. I will have the applicant kind of speak a little bit more to what's going on those changes there. And it was determined that this project complies with all applicable provisions and development standards of zoning section 20-44.060. And it was also reviewed and in compliance with the California Environmental Quality Act, and it qualifies for a Class 3 exemption under section 15301, and that the proposed change does not substantially change the physical dimensions of the tower or base station. Some general public comments that came in were concerned about Wi-Fi disruption. I wasn't able to make some last minute edits here, but there was a comment that came in yesterday regarding concern of increased radiation from the modifications. And I did just want to point out that the electromagnetic energy compliance report that was provided by the applicant states that the site is compliant with FCC rules and regulations, as long as the light and pole areas associated with active antenna installations are restricted and secured with signage posted at the site at all times, which they will be in compliance with. So with that, it is recommended by the Planning and Economic Development Department that zoning administrator approve this minor design review, a permit application to allow for various equipment modifications and installations at the existing telecommunication facility located at 750 Doyle Park Drive. And if you have any questions regarding this application, there is my contact information, as well as we will have the applicants kind of briefly go over the project as well. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Hartman. So I will anticipate the applicant presentation now. Thank you.
And there's no PowerPoint presentation, but they may speak.
Hello. I can't hear
Hi,
you.
hi there. We see you as Genesis A.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So
We don't,
I am
actually, we
the
don't see you, but we see that that name.
okay, perfect. So I am the authorized agent on behalf of AT&T for this project. I know Suzanne kind of mentioned that she wasn't going to go into the equipment lease area, so I don't know if I should just explain what's going on ground level, because she did a great job explaining everything else.
Sure.
So just on the ground level, a cabinet is going to be removed. It's going to be replaced with a new one. There's also going to be upgrades as far as battery strings. There's going to be 6 new battery strings within the battery cabinet. There's going to be another per cell cabinet that's going to be replaced. It's already existing. It's just going to be replaced with a new one. And what else is there going to be? There's going to be a new baseband unit that's going in there.
Genesis, I'm going to stop you just for a moment. I think most folks that would be on the call are interested in what is that going to look like? Is there going to be anything visibly different with these modifications on the ground level. I was able to see quite well what the pole changes will look like. How about on the ground? I visit that site frequently to walk my dog. So I'm aware of what it looks like now. What will it look like after all of these modifications have made on the ground level?
So on the ground level, there are going to be no visible changes. It's in an enclosure where nothing inside of there is actually visible to passerbys. So there's nothing visible that's going to be.
Okay, and then the
Okay.
public comment that was related to Wi-Fi interruption, can you address that?
I actually cannot, but we do have somebody on in regards to like the EME and the RF portion of this application that could speak to those types of comments that we received on this.
Okay, well, I think since, there has been public comment about that, I think we should address that. I recognize that the electromagnetic energy compliance report states no worries, but I think it's always nice to have a person explain that in layman's terms, what that
Right.
means. So that would be appreciated.
Okay, his name is David Wodakowski, I believe the last name is. I'm sorry if I butchered your last name, but he should be on the call as well that could speak to those comments.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. I'm David Witkowski. I'm with Oku Solutions. I have been contracted by EBI Consulting, which was the company that did the EME report. We do independent third-party review of EMEs. And so I wanted to come in today and address any questions that have been posed about this. Just real quickly to give you background on my qualifications. I'm a University of California graduated electrical engineer with a focus on microwave and RF design. Served 5 years in the U.S. Coast Guard doing radar systems. I'm a life member of the IEEE Microwave Theory and Technique Society and an IEEE senior member. So wanted to address first the question about Wi-Fi interruption.
Thank you.
Cellular and Wi-Fi are substantially different in their frequencies. So in looking at the residents' comments about their broadband performance, there could be a variety of reasons why their broadband is performing poorly, and that would be outside the scope of this hearing, but wanted to assure you that there is no interaction between cellular and Wi-Fi because their frequencies are very different. So if hopefully that puts that concern aside. I did read the comments that came in yesterday from the resident who was concerned about the health effects and the RF impacts. This site is fully within compliance of the FCC's regulations, which are actually derived from the IEEE C95.1 standard. So I'm very familiar with those because the FCC just basically takes the IEEE standard and modifies it into policy. The site is at the public access level, 3% of the FCC's limit. The FCC's limit, it's important that we understand, is set 50 times lower than the point at which an impact on the human body can even be measured. So there is a margin of safety there of 98% below the level at which an impact on the human body can actually be measured medically. And then this site is 3% of that 50 times reduction. So there is a rooftop location which was predicted to be no more than 10%, but I don't know that people will be climbing around the public will be climbing around on rooftops, hopefully not. But even if workers were up on that roof, it would not have an impact on them because it's within within that safety limit. These analyses for prediction are worst case scenarios. So what happens is that in every case I've ever been on where we've been asked to do post-installation on-site measurements, the levels are always lower. So that 3% number will actually very unlikely that it would ever be reached. 99.9% of the time when I measure these, they're below, because when we do the EME predictions, they are worst case scenarios.
Excellent. I think you've said enough. I appreciate the explanation, because I know for a lot of people, myself included, we don't have a true clarity on what those numbers mean. So I greatly appreciate that you were able to clarify that for even this person here. So
Happy to help.
thank you. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing for this item. It is a public hearing item, so the public hearing is now open, and I would like to open it up to public comment.
If you're wishing to make a comment, you can do so by selecting the raise your hand icon at the bottom of your Zoom screen. If you're calling in, please press *9 and that'll raise your hand for you. I do see a couple hands raised. We'll start with Alex K. Alex, I'm going to send you a prompt to unmute yourself. And will you please state your name for the record?
Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes.
Yes, we
Yes,
can.
we can.
Great, thank you. My name is Alex Crone. I'm a physical therapist here in Santa Rosa. I grew up here. I used to go to Doyle Park as a young kid and play with my dad's flag football team. It was a really nice, beautiful park. Now you drive up there and that antenna looks like a Mad Max movie. And for some reason in the plan, in the presentation, you have a bird's eye view from 3,000 feet away and a ground level view from 2 blocks away with a skinny, narrow lens. And you can't even see what the visual blight of that tower actually already is. And that's very disappointing. Second of all, why do we have an engineer for telling us about the health effects of RF radiation? You ever ask yourself that? You ever also ask yourself why the FCC is adopting IEEE standards, another engineering organization who is incestuous with the industry? And so is the FCC. The chairman of the FCC are people like Verizon and AT&T, lawyers and lobbyists who are gaming the system so they can expose us to trillion times the background radiation levels that are without a doubt harmful to you, Miss Meads, and your dog when you're walking in there. And to my daughter who has music class there, we're getting radiated 24/7. And if you believe the safety standards are actually protective, then you're a sucker. Excuse me. If you actually read the radio frequency compliance report, there's no on-site testing. That's a computer generated outcome. And the levels are set at extraordinary high levels he was talking about are for only short 30-minute durations. It's a short-term safety limit, and it's only levels where they can measure if it heats you up. And there are thousands of peer-reviewed studies showing subthermal effects of microwave radiation. And then what they try to tell you to do is, well, we're just going to set it 50 times below this and say that, okay, now it's safe for long-term exposure. So for the people who are living in homes that border that park and who having the radiation now thousands of times higher than it was before that tower was placed. And now they're putting towers in lower on the pole to expose us even more. And these new antennas have a much larger spike in their pulsation waves. So we're getting blasted with higher impulses with the new technology. So let's go back to the drawing board, first of all, and let's show the residents the actual visual representation of what the tower is and isn't going to look like. And don't be compliant with these companies that don't give a damn about our city, that come in and they put it on the pole that's in the worst spot visually, and because it's the cheapest way for them to hook up a power source to it. Next time you walk by that power source, hear the humming of electricity and how much electricity is being pumped into those antennas and sprayed in the air. It's microwave pulse radiation. They make weapons out of this stuff. Okay, it's absolutely not safe. And the engineer who's telling us about the safety effects, ask him to show you the evidence of how this stuff doesn't cause neurological harm in a city and in a country where we're having an epidemic of mental health problems. Ask him for the evidence that it doesn't cause autoimmune conditions or immune suppression. Let's actually see that evidence.
Thank you, Alex. I appreciate your comments very much.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have Sydney Cox. Sydney, I'm going to send you a prompt to unmute yourself, and can you please state your name for the record?
Great, great. Can you hear me? Can you hear me
Yes,
now?
we can.
Yes, I want to echo what Alex Crone said. Excellent comments. And I actually did send you 2 videos of when I went to that site last Saturday. And I was 100 feet away. I was 100 feet away with my Safe and Sound Pro 2. It's a well-recognized, internationally recognized meter. And I measured over 600,000 microwatts per meter squared. 10 million is the FCC guidelines for only 30 minutes. So at 600,000, it was above 600,000. That's 6% of the FCC guidelines, not 3%. And I was 100 feet away. So, and that's, I only stayed there for half an hour. I could not stand it anymore. I can't imagine kids playing ball right there at that field, and I can't imagine what it would be like being a family member sitting in the stands. So thank you, Alex, for bringing some excellent reality to the situation. We have been studying this for years. We've taken readings in so many places. I've looked at some of Alex's videos. Excellent. He goes to cell towers. He's got great meters. Really, we need boots on the ground, people, public citizens, crying out saying, stop, no more. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cox. I appreciate your comments.
Okay, I'll give it another minute. Alrighty, zoning administrator Means, it doesn't look like we have any more hands raised.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close the public comment then and close out the public hearing. I want to thank the 2 public commenters. I think it's a very important discussion. However, it is beyond the scope of the zoning administrator. My role here is to see if the application complies with our zoning code, and this application does. So I will be approving this application. I do want to encourage you to, continue your advocacy. I think any changes that are going to be related to this will have to come from a higher level. So please don't think that I did not hear your words and that your concerns are not valid. I am the zoning administrator. This project meets the zoning requirements, and I know that there is a huge push to improve cellular service throughout the city in case of emergency. So it's definitely competing interests from your side and what the telecommunication companies are trying to do. So I hope that you guys continue to remain active. So with that, I will go ahead and move on to item number 5.2, which, I do need to say also for those of you on the call about this item, this action, my approval for this project is final unless an appeal is filed with the department within 10 calendar days of today's decision. So that would be Monday, November 28th. And you can work with Planner Hartman on this if you would like to appeal this decision. So item 5.2 is a minor conditional use permit for the Ridley Avenue Family Apartments at 1801 Ridley Avenue. The city file number is CUP 21-059, and Susie Murray is the presenting planner.
And good morning. I am just trying to get my screen up and running here. Can you see it?
Not yet, but it often takes a minute for it to make that switch. Yeah, not seeing it.
Okay, let's try this again.
Now it's thinking about it.
Can you see it now?
We do. It's not in presentation mode. Now it is. Okay.
Yes. That took a minute. Okay.
Okay.
So the project before you this morning is the Ridley Avenue Family Apartments, which is located at 1801 Ridley Avenue. This is a proposal for multifamily housing to construct 50 units comprised of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom apartments. They're including several amenities on site to residents, including those you see on the screen, computer room, community space with the kitchen, a garden area, tot lot, and there were a few others. They have on-site parking in compliance with the zoning code, and they will also be including some off-site parking. The project has already received a density bonus. And as part of that density bonus, they had a concession for building height. The minor conditional use permit, which is before you today, is required for multifamily housing in the R16 or single family, predominantly single family zoning district. And then it also requires a major design review, which will be considered by the design review board at a later date. Excuse me. Here's a kind of a neighborhood context map, if you will. The star is the subject site. Whoopsie. And to the north, there's the Comstock School. To the west, we have residential development ranging, and it's mostly single family. These are that little area that's shown in the pink here is a county island, as is this larger area over here. To the west, it's predominantly single family, some of which is very large lot. Then to the south is again single family development as you go south on Ridley, and then to the east, as I said, it's undeveloped at the moment. Yeah, I know that there are some plans to develop that site in the future, but nothing set yet. Here's a closer image of the site here. And it's something I just keep this this pathway here heads north to the school. And it's a very well-traveled pathway. I'm going to go back so you can see it a little bit better here. And I'm going to let the applicant's engineer talk a little bit about the easement that is over that site during their presentation. So the general plan land use designation, which is shown in this graphic, is medium low density residential, which allows residential development at a rate of 8 to 13 units per acre. This project, as I mentioned earlier, has already been approved for a density bonus. And because it's a 100% affordable project, they're entitled to get up to an 80% density bonus. They've requested and been approved for a 47% density bonus or an additional 16 units. The zoning is R16, single family residential, which I mentioned, which is not consistent with the general plan land use. If a few years back, this would have been required to get, this project would have been required to get a rezoning. The state's taken that away from us, that requirement, which is good. So when development is proposed consistent with the general plan, and residential, specifically residential development, is proposed consistent with the general plan, we cannot require that rezoning. And this project is consistent. Here's kind of a site plan, if you will, the kind that I like to see that shows the project construction or constructed with Ridley on the east side or the right side there, and Wingate, a new street on the southern border. Wingate will eventually extend past this site. They will construct all of the frontage improvements. You can see parking around the site here. The existing residential uses will be buffered. This is a nice feature. The trash enclosure is in this area here. And so it's not right up pushed up against somebody else's property line. So there's a nice space in between properties there. So there are 6 required findings for a minor conditional use permit or for any conditional use permit. And staff's analysis concluded that those 6 findings can be met. The 6th, you're wondering, where's number 6? It's right here. It's compliance with the California Environmental Quality Act. And this project has been found in compliance with CEQA as infill development. It's consistent with the general plan and zoning. It's within city limits on a parcel that's less than 5 acres and is substantially surrounded by urban development. There's no value as habitat for endangered or rare or threatened species. And that said, the project has also been conditioned to for measures for birds and bats, depending on the time of year that the construction commences, and disturbance to trees or shrubs or wherever those critters may be nesting. And all required utilities and emergency services are available at this site. So we did receive several public comments. To summarize the first group, traffic and parking. And I touched on parking a little bit already, and I've got to, hold on a sec, I need to move something on my screen because there, I can't see my notes. The project site is just outside the North Station area specific plan, and the parking requirements, zoning code parking requirements. Gosh, you know what? I don't have the number off the top of my head, but we do have a parking study that was done by W-Trans, a traffic consultant, which was reviewed by staff. There are 67 parking spaces on site, and they meet their parking requirements. There's also additional parking off-site on the southern edge of Wingate. Compatibility, in terms of compatibility with neighboring properties, at first glance, we do see that, this is a larger multifamily housing project where the neighbors are predominantly 1- and 2-story single family residences. But if you see here in this graphic down below, the general plan land use, which we looked at above, this area here is low density residential. This area over here is high density residential. This area down here is medium density residential. This site, by design, is kind of a transition site that will buffer and gradually increase densities so that we don't have very low density residential next to very high density residential. So by design, this site was intended to be developed with this type of use in the general plan. There was also some concern about privacy for the neighbors to the west and north. The project has been conditioned to include a solid 8-foot fence. That design will be considered by the design review board, although the use itself needs to be approved here in this meeting. And then there was also some question about tree removal. And as you can see, this big, beautiful oak down here, that's out there, and that oak will be preserved, but as best as they can. There is some trenching that will be done around that oak, although the project arborist will be on site to guide that process. This happens frequently with development, and trees survive all the time. So, and occasionally we do lose them. And if that is the case, in compliance with the tree ordinance, there will be replacements planted. There's also some concern about the trees along these property lines. Several trees will come out. I'm going to let the applicant address that a little bit, but they want to save those trees just as much as their neighbors do We're treating it as though those trees will be removed, although if they can be saved, they will be. There were also some questions and concerns raised about drainage and street improvements. I believe I saw Cleve Gurney, our engineer, on the call, and I also know that the applicant's engineer, Casey McDonald, is also on the call and can answer those questions if you still have questions about them after the applicant presentation. So with that, it's recommended by the Planning and Economic Development Department that the zoning administrator approve a minor conditional use permit to allow the Ridley Avenue family apartments at 1801 Ridley Avenue. If anybody has, if you have questions for me, I'm happy to answer them. The applicant I know has a presentation, which I'll queue up right after this. And if there's any members of the public that would like to contact me, my information is shown on the screen. If you're calling in and can't see it, my telephone number, my direct line is 707-543-4348. You can also email me at smurray, M-U-R-R-A-Y, @srcity.org. And that concludes my presentation. And if you would like ask me any questions, or I'll go ahead and get the other presentation up and running.
Why don't we go ahead and have the applicant provide their presentation, because that may answer any questions that I do have. Thank you, Ms. Murray.
Okay, and I've asked the applicant team if they could just go ahead and raise their hands and make it easy for us to spot. See. And I think I'm not sure who's kicking off the presentation, if that's going to be Marcus or.
Good morning, Susie. This is Josh.
Yeah. Okay, you going to kick off?
I can kick us off, and thank you.
Okay, just tell me when to click, okay?
Sure. I don't see our presentation up yet.
Oh, you don't?
No,
don't.
we still see yours.
Well, we'll get this. All right, so technology, that's not my expertise. Bear with me a sec, you guys.
Of course.
Yours is up on my screen.
Good morning, Zoning Administrator Meads.
Good
Thanks for
morning.
the time this morning.
Oh, of course. Thanks for being here.
Can we
we
see
are.
it now?
Yes, we
Yep.
do.
Good.
Although we may not be in the presentation mode yet.
We're not in the presentation mode. We do.
Oh my gosh, I am.
We see the,
Hold on, I'm just gonna start
Okay.
from scratch. Sorry, you guys.
that's okay. I feel like it's different every time. PowerPoint sometimes feels very easy, and then other times I'm like, wait, I did the same thing as I did last time, and now there's this. There we
There we
go. Perfect.
Sorry about that. Go ahead, Josh.
That's
and I'll
okay. Thank you again for
advance
kicking
when
us
you tell
off,
me
Susie.
to.
That was very thorough. I appreciate it. This is Josh Reed. I'm Milestone's partner on Ridley Avenue Family Apartments. And Susie and I have been working on this project for quite some time. Marcus Griffin is on the line from Milestone. He'll be available to answer any questions. Susie hit a lot of my talking points. If you want to go to the next slide, in her presentation, we're 100% affordable family community with a mixture of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units. The project sits on 2.6 acres in northwest Santa Rosa, which has historically been underserved for affordable housing. Ridley is close to many amenities that will benefit our residents, including public transportation. As Susie mentioned, we're adjacent to Comstock Middle School and near James Monroe Elementary School. We're adjacent to or near shopping in Marlowe Road, where we have a Safeway and Rite Aid center. We're adjacent or near parks, medical facilities, and more. Ridley is served by bus stops at the intersection of Guerneville Road and Ridley Avenue, and also just a half-mile walk to the SMART train station at Santa Rosa North Station. I think what I'll do is let our architect walk everyone through the plans, and then we can come back to a couple of the items if we miss anything on trees and easements, et cetera.
Well, I will say that I love the look of the design and everything of this project. However, that's not within the scope of today. Today, we're looking just at conditional use permit things, which is more about circulation, parking, and fence, that type of thing. Please don't not go through the architecture if you would like, but just don't feel like you need to spend a ton of time on that. The designer
going to be
gets to act
super
on
quick. Keith, you want to
Yeah, you want me to
just walk us through just kind of the
quickly?
overview real quick, and then we can go to Rick, because it sounds like most of the questions are going to be more related to the trees and kind of the layout, and we'll have Casey from Adobe available as well. So
perfect.
Sure, if you want to go to the next slide, I'll start there. Actually, go one more slide, please. Okay, here's the another view of the site plan here, and just really quickly wanted to point out, again, 50 units. There's two 24-unit buildings at 3 stories, and then the building in orange is the leasing and amenity building with 2 units above it. And just to point out that we strategically, as Susie so nicely pointed out, that because of the zoning around us, the building in height and massing steps from tallest on the east down to, goes from 3 to 2 in order to provide a buffer to the neighbors to the west. And we've also placed the buildings as far southeast as possible and used the parking around the back to create more buffer from the neighbors. Next slide, please. Here's just examples of the typical elevations for the 3-story buildings. It's a contemporary farmhouse elevation with a use of different materials like stucco, vertical siding, which you see in the blue, and then some stone accents, which you see in the entry, and also using a combination of flat and pitched roof to create variation, but also to create space on the roof for mechanical equipment as well as solar panels. Next slide, please. And here's an elevation of the 2-story leasing and amenity building utilizing the same materials. Next slide, please. And here's the aerial view. Once again, you can see the building stepping from 3 stories on the right to 2 stories on the left. And you can start to see the relationship to the streets and also where the amenities are placed. So maybe, I believe the next slides will start to rotate around. So if you want to go to the next one, here's a view from the west side overlooking the 2-story leasing and amenity building, where you can see the large common area down the center between the 2 3-story buildings. And then the 2 elements, the community garden on the right side, which will be kind of serve as a showcase as you drive up Wingate, and then the tot lot over there on the northwest corner, internalized into the site, not only to from a visual standpoint, but also to keep it safe for the kids that will be playing there. And that's also where the laundry facility is located, so it's great for the parents to be able to do laundry while they keep an eye on their kids. Next slide, please. And here's some perspective so you can see the character of the buildings, the movement. Again, that's one of the 3-story buildings in the bottom there, and where you see like the car and the person standing there. So that's where the residents would enter the building, and we've concentrated material there to kind of celebrate that and make it stand out. And then you can see the step downs in the corners to help bring the scale of the buildings down. And then the upper image there is the entry to the leasing and amenities building. Next slide, please. And here's just a couple more views of the amenities. Here's a zoomed in kind of on the left there, the central courtyard, where you can see outdoor seating, open green areas with amenities, lots of lush landscaping. Top right, that's the entry into the project off of Wingate, where the community garden is located. And then the bottom there, you can see the top lot that's up at the top left corner of the site, and how it's the connection to the center courtyard there. Next slide, please. And here's the material palette. If anyone has any questions about this, I won't go into detail. Next slide, please. And let me pass it over to Rick here to talk about the landscaping.
Yeah, well, I think Keith did a really good job of kind of explaining some of the outdoor spaces, but just to kind of hit on some other points on circulation, we have a perimeter walk that goes around the outside of all the buildings. And then the internal circulation, capping off with the central area that Keith mentioned. That's the sitting area, open space, green area. It will have a shade structure in there, and then it's right off to the leasing office. And then he also mentioned the community garden to the southwest corner, and the tot lot to the southwest corner, and the tot lot to the northwest corner. Both of those will be fenced in, lower fences though, probably 42-inch fences around those for safety reasons and circulation concerns. And then, as Susie mentioned, also the fencing on the west and north side will be 8-foot solid wood fences. So which is a little bit more than what normally the city allows. So that should give good screening and a little bit of noise retention on it. In addition to that, for the trees that we are taking out, we will be replacing those per the tree mitigation requirements. And on the west side, we'll be planting screening trees to help mitigate some of the issues with this project with neighboring projects. So if there's more detail that you need on it, I'm more than welcome to answer any questions.
No, I think you've been very thorough. Thank you.
Susie, we can, in light of zoning administrator Mead's comments about not diving too deep into the design, we can probably just end it here. I didn't present any civil plans within this presentation, but we can certainly talk through any other questions.
I would appreciate it. I did a site visit to the site. First of all, I want to say I think this is a wonderful project. I'll be interested in hearing, public comments, but what I've seen is I'm very impressed. But I would like to hear a little bit about how Ridley Avenue will be improved. And I don't know if that's a Cleve, one of our engineers, Mr. Gurney, question, or if that is from the applicant team. But I think that may, waylay some of the concerns that neighbors have.
This is Casey with Adobe. I can answer that question.
Great. So thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, so Ridley will be widened along our frontage. So we're widening Ridley, putting in curb, gutter, and sidewalk, all within that 50-foot easement that runs along. It's a public road and utility easement that runs along our easterly frontage.
Excellent. And I noticed there were going to be some street lights, right?
I think that, I assume so. I think our conditions were that we shall add streetlights that, under the direction of the city. So, of course, we'll work with the city on what's needed there. I know there's some existing streetlights out there. So yeah.
As necessary. I just want to make sure that it's safe for folks that are probably used to walking that stretch. And I know Susie mentioned that pathway between the, Ridley Avenue and Herbert Comstock Middle School. I don't think I said the right name, Comstock Middle School. Would you please explain, is that going to be a safe pathway for people to use? There's an easement, I understand, over that.
Yeah, so the 50-foot easement that exists on our site, actually, I just, when I heard about it this morning, I pulled the deed for that property, and it appears that an identical easement extends further north along the property to the north, which conveys that existing pathway. So,
excellent.
We definitely can look at, maybe because it just kind of turns in it's still used as a road. So how we maybe transition like an asphalt temporary walkway to where they're already existing walking. I mean, that's typical, but that's not an issue.
Okay, excellent. Well, maybe we should go ahead and open it up for public comment, and let's see if the public brings up any additional questions that we may want to refer back to this great team for.
If you wish to make a public comment, you can do so by selecting the raised hand icon at the bottom of your Zoom screen. If you're calling in, please press *9. The zoning administrator means I don't see any hands raised.
Okay, excellent. Let's go ahead and close public comment then. So I asked most of the questions I had. Susie, actually, both the applicant team and Susie addressed everything that I had written down as notes after reviewing the plans. So I'm very comfortable with it. I really do hope that you're able to save that big, beautiful oak tree. When I was out there, it's a lovely specimen. And I know, like Susie mentioned, you guys want to save as many of them as possible. So that's very much appreciated. Project is conditioned to provide protection, as Planner Murray noted. So I don't have any additional questions. I feel very confident in making the findings to approve this project. I am excited about it being where it is in the northwest side and adjacent to so many nice things, and the fact that you're adding so many lovely amenities. It's really great. It's the type of housing project that this zoning administrator loves to see. So thank you so much for that. So I will go ahead and approve that resolution and sign it once I have it in front of me. Please note this action is final unless an appeal is filed with the department within 10 calendar days of this decision. That would be Monday, November 28th, 2022. And you can reach out to, the planning department in general, or we prefer, if you can, to reach out to Planner Susie Murray at smurray@srcity.org. So thanks, Ms. Murray and applicant team for a great project.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Item 5.3 is a minor conditional use permit to allow a mobile food vending use at 2728 Santa Rosa Avenue. City file number is CUP 22-036, and the presenting planner is Mr. Connor Murray. Connor McKay, thank you.
Thanks. I'm going to share my screen. Okay, can you see and hear me and see my screen?
All great. Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
McKay.
Good morning, everybody. Like zoning administrator Mead said, my name is Connor McKay, and I'm pleased to be here this morning to present Elroy's mobile food vending minor conditional use permit request located at 2728 Santa Rosa Avenue. So this is an application to operate a mobile food vending land use within an existing parking lot that serves a building and landscape materials sales land use. The proposed mobile food vending land use would operate from 10 a.m. to 11 p.m. daily. The project is located, as I mentioned, on Santa Rosa Avenue, kind of to the southeast, in the southeast quadrant of the city. Neighborhood context is that it's east of Highway 101. There are some scattered residential uses to the east and the southeast, but primarily the surroundings are retail land uses. The general plan land use designation is retail and business services, and the project site is located within the general commercial zoning district, which both accommodate the proposed mobile food vending land use. Here we have a site plan of how the proposed mobile food vending operation would operate. There's an existing modular building that would have the restrooms that are located in compliance with the zoning code requirements that dictate the operation of mobile food vending land uses. The applicant is also providing additional paved areas and doing some restriping to maximize the available parking at the project site. And as you can see, the project, as I mentioned previously as well, shares the parking lot with the Garden Essentials retail land use, which is a landscape and building materials sales land use. So here are the required findings for a minor conditional use permit. Staff can make the required findings and that the site zoning and general plan land use allow for mobile food vending uses. The operation would be required to comply with the city's noise ordinance, lighting standards, and conditions of approval that would prevent potential nuisances to the existing and future land uses in the vicinity. Some additional findings need to be made regarding a parking reduction. Basically, the required parking for landscape and building material sales is 1 space per 5,000 square feet of outdoor display area, which would result in I think there's actually 1 space per 1,000. I may have misnoted that, but I believe the staff for the resolution should be correct. But basically the required parking for the existing land use would be 51 spaces. And right now there's fewer than 31 spaces serving that retail land use. But with the addition of paved area and additional striping, there would be a total of 31 parking spaces. And that is anticipated to accommodate both the mobile food vending land use that is proposed and the existing retail activity, because although the land use that exists there is classified as a landscape and building materials sales, it actually just 98% of the retail is pottery. So due to this highly specialized nature of the retail land use, it is anticipated to generate a parking demand that is significantly lower than is what is specified in table 3-4. Additionally, the shop closes at 4:30 p.m., which is before anticipated peak dinner time, which would be a higher parking demand for the mobile food vending operation. And since those peak hours do not line up, staff anticipates that the parking that would be existing at the site would be sufficient for both uses. Additionally, the proposed mobile food vending operation does not propose any on-site dining, which further reduces anticipated parking demand for the mobile food vending land use. I think that is it. So basically staff can make the required findings for the parking reduction, which is a finding or a reduction that can be approved by the review authority, provided the review authority makes these findings as well. The project has been reviewed in compliance with the California Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA. It's categorically exempt pursuant to section 15304, and that the proposed mobile food vending operation would constitute a minor temporary use of land having negligible or no permanent effects on the environment. We have not received any emails or phone calls related to this project, and it is recommended by the Planning and Economic Development Department that the zoning administrator approve a minor conditional use permit to allow this operation of a mobile food vending land use at 2728 Santa Rosa Avenue. If you have any questions, my contact information is CT as in Tom, MCKAY@srcity.org. My phone number is 707-543-4351. The applicant representative is available to respond to any questions about the proposed land use, but they do not have any remarks or presentation to make at this time.
Great, thank you, Planner McKay. I appreciate that presentation. I just want to clarify, I think you meant to say 51 parking spaces when you said 31. So I want to clarify for anybody that's watching that the project will end up, after having the paved area, of having 51 parking spaces available. I don't have any questions.
Sorry, let me clarify that. So what I meant to say is that the required parking as is required by the zoning code is 51 for the building and landscape material sales, whereas the project proposes to include 31 for that land use and the mobile food vending.
Thank you very much for clarifying. I misunderstood that. So there will be 31 spaces available, which, I mean, I've looked at the aerial and, you know, that's a huge display area. So that require, you know, the calculation ends up with a whole lot of parking that I can't imagine ever needing to be used for that. So I agree that the parking reduction is perfectly applicable and approvable for this. Let's go ahead and open it up for public comment to hear what folks have to say about this project.
If you're wishing to make a public comment, you can do so by selecting the raise your hand icon at the bottom of your screen. If you're calling in, please press *9. Zoning Administrator Meads, I don't see any hands raised.
Excellent. Well, as I mentioned, I don't have any questions about it. I think it's actually a great location.
Zoning Administrator Meads.
I need to close public comment.
Yes, please.
Thank you, Recording Secretary Burke. I will close public comment, please. And now I will say that I don't have any questions about this project. I think it's a great location. I think it's a great project. I look forward to visiting the location, and yeah, so I will be approving this project. I need to mention that the final action is appealable. If you file an appeal with the department within 10 calendar days of today's decision, that would be Monday, November 28th, 2022. Thank you very much. Next, we'll move on to our last scheduled item, item 5.4, which is a minor conditional use permit to legalize an existing 7-foot solid fence at 121 Walnut Court. File number is CUP 22-049, and Nor Bisla will be presenting the item.
Thank you, and good morning, Zoning Administrator Meads. I'm going to share my screen. Oh, I can't. Okay. Can you see my presentation?
Yes, looks beautiful.
Thank you. This is a minor conditional use permit application for a 7-foot solid privacy residential fence at 121 Walnut Court. The applicant seeks to legalize a 7-foot fence built in the sides and the rear of the property for privacy and security reasons. Here you can see a close-up view of the home. On the backside, there is commercial businesses, and on the front and side properties, there is residential. Here's a neighborhood context map. It is located on Walnut Court and Sonoma Avenue. The general plan land use designation for this property is low density residential, and the zoning is R16. Here are the supporting plans. As you can see, there is the rear fence going all along the rear property line, and that is abutting the general commercial zoning district. On the left side, you can see that the fence is in yellow and the windows are in pink, and those are actually the children's bedroom windows, which were facing directly into the neighbor's windows. So they put the fence there and on the other side, and both of the fences on the side are completely out of the front setback. And as you can see on the picture on the right, the fence is screened from public view by the trees and greenery at the house. Staff is able to make all the required findings for a minor conditional use permit. The design of this fence is typical for a residential neighborhood, and it's entirely out of the front setback. Staff is also able to make the required findings for additional height. The additional height is necessary to provide privacy and security, and it is not a safety hazard as it's out of the front setback entirely. The proposed project is categorically exempt from CEQA with a Class 3 exemption, as it is the construction of an accessory structure. There are no unresolved issues and no public comment has been received. Therefore, it is recommended by the Planning and Economic Development that the zoning administrator approve a minor conditional use permit to legalize a 7-foot fence at 121 Walnut Court. And this is my contact information if you have any questions. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Planner Bisla. I don't have any questions about this project. I totally understand things happen when people build the fence because they felt it was necessary and they didn't realize they needed to apply for a permit. So thank you for doing that at this time and going ahead and legalizing that fence. I understand the desire for privacy. The fact that none of the neighbors have said that they are in a, disapproval with it shows that they agree. And so I will be approving this project as well.
Zoning Administrator Means.
I forgot
sh-
to open public comment.
Yes.
Boy, I tell you, I'd like to open public comment because it is possible that my opinion is not 100% valid. So please, if you have a public comment, now would be the time to make it.
Again, if you're wishing to make a public comment, you can do so by selecting the raise your hand icon at the bottom of your Zoom screen. And if you're calling in, you can press *9. Zoning Administrator Meads, there are no hands raised.
Okay, good. Then I will close public comment. And while I do feel bad for skipping it, at least I wasn't making somebody wait longer than they needed to make their comment. So just to reiterate, I think it's perfectly understandable when people, may make a mistake. And so legalizing the fence now is a great opportunity, and we appreciate that you're doing so. I can make all of the findings to support this project, and we'll be approving it. Please note this action is final unless an appeal is filed with the department within 10 calendar days of today's decision, which is Monday, November 28th, 2022. And that concludes today's business. And this meeting of the zoning administrator is now adjourned. Happy Thanksgiving.